Hey, what's going on, guys? For today's Mook review, we're checking out Hobby Japan's Girls Plastic Kit textbook here. So obviously this book is going to be focused on how to build and especially how to paint different anime character, like small scale anime figures, mostly girls covered in this book, but obviously the same techniques could be used for male characters as well. Let's go ahead and get into it here for today's Mook review. Alright, so as you can see here on the front, the feature model is one of the minimum factory kits from Max Factory, and just leafing through this, it looks like that's going to be a lot of the models featured in here are almost exclusively minimum factory model kits, it looks like. So that's what we can expect to see for the model kits, which are all 120 scale, unless we see anything different once we get into it here. But the price for this one here listed at 2,500 yen there, so about a little over $20 in US dollars there for that, so not too bad at all. It's pretty standard size here for this, coming in at just over 100 pages. Here we can see the backside of one of the models here, and on the inside of the dust jacket, it's the same thing, just monotone in this kind of turquoise blue. Let's see if it's the same on the front. Yep, just the same artwork. Just monochrome there. Did I say monotone? Monochrome? Anyway, opening up to the inside here, we've got our contents. Here you can see two of the models. I'm not sure if this is primarily by one artist or if there's going to be multiple artists featured in here. But starting off here, like so many of these kind of more tutorial guidebooks, it starts off with just kind of an introduction to some of the different useful tools here: nippers, knife, sandpaper, files, cement, different types of glue, super glue, clips, Q-tips, top coat, palette there, and then getting into some brushes. So these are Hobby Japan brushes, Nazca brand brushes, Gaia Notes brushes, so just kind of all your major brands, and it's all in Japanese, unfortunately, but yeah, you can translate some of this to just kind of see what's recommended as far as different types of brushes. Also the Tamiya Weathering Master sets down here for skin tone. There's some Mr. brushes down here from GSI. And then some other different tools. It looks like different kind of like scribing and scraping tools here. This would be like a ceramic blade for scraping, some sponge sanding tools over there, some Mr. Brush Cleaner, tweezers, masking tape, wet palette, airbrush, and these glasses. I actually just ordered a set of these glasses for myself, specifically for this purpose, for working on like small scale figures. These are just like magnifying glasses here, but they're, from Hobby Japan, I think is the brand actually, yeah, that makes those. So they actually just kind of look like regular glasses, rather than looking like a big magnifying glass thrown in your face or something like that. All right, now what about the paints? So there's going to be a lot of different types of paints covered in here from what I can tell, going from like your standard Mr. Color lacquer paints to some Vallejo model color acrylic paints, enamel paints. This looks like it's just like an introduction to like the three main types of paints, like lacquers, acrylics, and enamels. And then we're getting into like some of the different specific brands here. So for like acrylic paints, we have Tamiya and Mr. Color acrylic paints, Citadel paints, Vallejo acrylic paints. Those are going to be the main brands covered in here. And so let's get into it. Looks like this first part is just kind of about thinning the paints. So this one's showing how the paint is applied with different thinning ratios, 1 to 0, so just the full-on paint, 1 to 0.5 with a little bit of thinner, 1 to 1, 1 to 1.5, 1 to 2 where the paint's quite thin, looking like that, which is typically, there's not really any particular right or wrong way to do it. Just depends on what you're going for, right, for the application. Down here, this is pretty cool as well, showing you how the paint will dry, or how much of a fingerprint you're going to leave on the paint. Like if here is 5 minutes, you can see there's a big fingerprint on it. 10 minutes, you can see a little bit of a fingerprint. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. So the point is, like, after 30 minutes, you're not going to be able to, or you're not going to be leaving fingerprints on the parts if you touch them. So next up here, just like an introduction to colors. It looks like for Vallejo paints here, adding your little metal ball bearing in there to help mix up the paint when you're shaking it. So it looks like this first part is kind of all about Vallejo paints here, just kind of an introduction as to how to use those either by brush or by airbrush. Again, this is one of those MOOCs where I'm gonna have to take this home and like spend some real time going through and translating this to get the full value out of it, because I'm sure there's a lot of really great information in here especially when it comes to acrylic paints. Is something that I've just never really worked with at all. But I mean, you know, people certainly do work with acrylic paints all the time, and this is evidence here in this Mook, especially for this type of painting, all the work that's going to be done in here with acrylic paints. You know, it's something that I, as a modeler, should look more into. I should try to, I feel like I should try to widen my experience and try out some acrylic paints here as well. So I'll do some translating on this later. But anyway, here's some introduction to the Accretion line from Mr. Color. I've also got, let's see, what are these? I'm not sure I've ever seen these before. Classy Dressy Accretion. So I'm wondering if these are also from, yeah, these are from GSI as well. Just kind of different color line, I guess. Also got some acrylic gouache over here. So there are different types of paints that you can use. So a lot of, you know, real estate in this book dedicated to just, you know, educating you about some different types of paints and how the different paints work and everything. So that's really cool. You can see about different techniques of as far as like how the paints are applied on using different methods here. There you got your spray booth. Now, after we've had our little bit kind of on the previous page here about a spray booth, now we can talk about lacquer paints. Obviously, the issue with lacquer paints, they're much more, you know, toxic. They're fumes. We want to make sure that you have good ventilation. So we had the Mr. Color, and we have Gaia Notes, lacquer paints here, and then from Tamiya spray can lacquers, finishers, lacquers, the compressor, airbrush. Some information there about your airbrush, some kind of guide about the air pressure there, some different kind of tool recommendations here, I guess, from Tamiya and Mr. Hobby, yeah, from GSI. All right, now we're getting into some actual models here, maybe, possibly. Let's see. So you can see, again, these are some of the minimum factory line, and the Naked Angel line would be that one there. So starting off with Miyuki, who we have here on the front, just obviously painted in a much different way. This is kind of the out-of-box paint scheme there for Miyuki. So this one is modeled by Mucho. And as it goes here, it's just starting off with kind of your basic construction guide from, you know, from open the box to cutting out the parts, to shaving down the mold lines and panel lines, getting it all prepped and everything, mold line removal, seam line removal, I should say, getting some spray on there, spraying some of these parts. If you're looking at this, you can see how he's painting on the runner, but what he actually did was to partially remove the parts from the runner. So like on this particular part here, maybe you guys can see that there was 2 gates, but he went ahead and removed one of the gates beforehand, and then it's still connected via the one gate there. The reason for that is because these parts are really small, they're really hard to either hold in your hand while you're hand painting or clip on like an alligator clip. There's not really any place for the alligator clip to clip on because the parts are so small. So leaving them connected via just one gate on the runner, then when you need to cut it out and you're ready to do some more assembly and kind of move on with the process, there's just one gate that you have to worry about trying to clean up really carefully there after the majority of the parts already been painted or whatever. So pretty good tip there, especially for working on tiny little parts here like this. So you can see doing some hand painting there, and then over here doing some dry brushing over some parts that he painted in black. So dry brushing a little kind of like bluish tone over that to just kind of bring out some of the details on that black section. Looks really nice. And then painting in some of the smaller details here, and then going in over the skin tone parts. It looks like doing some shading and stuff around on the skin tone parts, which look to be completely unpainted. So I've talked about this before on especially like these particular line of kits, how they're molded in skin tone color, and then for painting them, a lot of times what I've seen this done a lot, that modelers won't paint the skin tone parts of these particular 120 scale kits just because the plastic already has a somewhat very slight translucent nature to it, so it actually kind of looks better unpainted. So what you do is actually just kind of do your shading and highlighting a little bit on just the bare plastic, and then just top coat it like that, and that's going to be giving you a really nice look to that. So all he did was just paint the lips on the face after doing like a little bit of shading around on it, and then just put the eye decals on it, and that's it. So pretty cool. Looks like you can also check out his YouTube channel there, The King Mucho. So I'll definitely check that out. So that looks very cool. Next one is going to be the Minimum Factory Shunya Yamashita's Military Nene Makeup Edition, modeled by Furitsuko. So it looks like, yeah, these are going to be done by different modelers, which is cool because each model then will have kind of a little bit different techniques to it. If these were all modeled by the same modeler, it would probably be, the same kind of techniques applied to every model because the modeler has their own way of doing it. But by showcasing different modelers, you can see a little bit different techniques and things applied for different ones. The makeup edition versions of these kits, if you guys are wondering, are basically just ones that are just molded in one color, whereas the regular versions are molded in different colors. They're not completely color accurate, but they're pretty color accurate for them just being out of the box. The makeup editions are just all molded in skin tone, so that just makes it easy to paint everything. Everything's just got like that nice neutral tone to paint off of. So looks like the clothing on this one is going to be airbrushed, and then the details painted in by hand, painting those details. Again, not painting the skin tone parts, just putting the decals on the face, doing a little bit of shading and some detail painting, mostly around the lips, shading around the face a little bit, using that Tamiya Weathering Master set there for some shading around on some of these skin tone parts, painting some of these really teeny tiny little detail parts, the hair, painting in the sort of like quote unquote panel lining, sort of using that thinned down purple, painting that in to kind of add some definition in and around the hair and the stocking parts. So just painting over the skin tone, painting a really thin layer of black over that, so you still kind of have that skin tone showing through the thinned down black, to making it look like the stockings there for that. So very cool. All right, this one is, like I mentioned before, one of the Naked Angel line. This one's modeled by Purashiba. It even still has the seam lines on it there, unfortunately, but it's interesting kind of how so much of the focus of this one, as you can see here it's basically going from here all the way through these steps to there for painting the face. So rather than putting too much effort into the seam line removal, which I still would have done, but just focused more on just painting the skin, since there's so much real estate, there's so much skin on this kit. I was just wearing the bikini, so just focused more on just painting the skin, painting the face and the hair. And here's all this about painting the hair over here, rather than putting much effort into the seam line removal on it. But yeah, so once that's all painted, top coated, and here's our finished result. Yeah, very nice. Okay. Up next, this one is the Deedlit kit. Yeah, this one is by Tenchio. This one's starting off by removing the seam line there on the cape part, and just kind of gluing that, sanding that down, getting the cape part all painted here on the inside. So I believe that part he has molded in blue. So I'm wondering if maybe he didn't paint the blue part, just painted the orange part on the inside. The inside, I should say, is supposed to be orange. Okay, yeah, and then he's painting some blue on top of it, but it's making it look like to me like it's not entirely painted with blue, but just kind of used a similar tone of blue there to kind of paint the shadows and then paint the highlights, and just kind of leaving the base color blue plastic as the main color for that, it looks like. Detail painting around on the boots. Again, just kind of painting in the shadows, painting in the highlights on top of the plastic, because the plastic's already molded in the correct color. And then the same thing here for some more parts of the clothing. There it looks like, painting the gold trim around everything. That's the one thing with this kit too. There's a lot of this kind of gold lining trim around the decorative parts of the clothing and all those aspects there. That looks really nice. And then the legs. So once again, just doing some kind of like shadowing around on the skin tone parts, on the legs, on the face. The decal there for the face. And a little gold handle and red jewel added in there on the side, adding this tiny little drop of white there to make that look like a shining light there, or light shining, reflecting off this reflective jewel surface there on that, and kind of purposely unevenly painted with the red, again, just to kind of give it the kind of look of the three-dimensional depth to it. And then a little bit of base painting there as well. Up next, we've got the Minori with Honda small snow plow, modeled by Musashi. This is a really cool kit. This one comes with this snow plow machine and also this little snowman here as well. So once again, just kind of going through the steps of, looks like this one was maybe entirely primed with some white surfacer first, and then just kind of going in and painting everything in. So painting in the sections of the clothing, kind of starting with the most kind of interior clothing and kind of working your way out. It's kind of a good way to go about painting your clothing there. So painting the leggings first, and then the boots, the shorts, the jacket, the hat, here, all those parts, the scarf. So there's a lot more clothing because it's like a winter theme. She's wearing a lot more clothing compared to some of the other ones. So there's a lot more clothing painting here going on, which all looks really nice, especially some more kind of pattern there, like with the pattern in the scarf, for example. Using some paint there to paint some shadows in and around the face part, which again is going to be mostly covered up, but there's just a little bit of it sticking out there. This one is part of the Minimum Factory line. It kind of could have been one that could have gone to the Naked Angel line, but there's of the two kits that are included in this, neither of them are naked, so it's in the Minimum Factory line. Anyway, this one is also modeled by Furitsuko, who we saw on the previous kit. Here, this one of Non-san. Yeah, sort of questionable skin tone there. She already has very tan skin. This particular model is known for having, quite that Japanese gyaru style, very dark tan, but it's painted even darker. So there, on the actual model kit, which, yeah, I don't know about that, but anyway, so at the very least, for our educational purposes here, it just kind of illustrates how to paint a darker skin tone here compared to just kind of like we've seen on most of the kits where the skin hasn't been painted at all, and we've just been like highlighting and shading on top of the bare plastic. This one looks like was all primed with a gray surfacer, and then painting all of our colors, the skin tone and the outfit on top of that here. Using some white for the eyes, which I have to say looks a little bit too white in my opinion. For the eyes, normally kind of you don't want to use like pure white for that. But it's kind of interesting that the eyes are painted on in this case rather than using the decals, which we've seen I think for most of the other kits in here thus far. So alright, these are going to be the next ones that we're going to see here. Some more custom throughout the rest. Looks like from page 90, 86, 82, 78, 74, they're kind of in reverse order, or I read them in reverse order anyway for the rest of these. So let's see, they're going to be much kind of shorter, whereas the other ones that we've seen so far have been very like step by step, a lot of steps through the process. These seem like they're just going to be kind of like shorter ones. So this one, for example, how to paint Nene Minimum Factory Makeup Edition, like we saw before. Here you can see like the box art, the color pattern is down here. This would be like what's on the instructions inside the kit if you get this kit. And here it's going through showing how to paint the eyes. So if you didn't want to use the decals, you wanted to paint the eyes yourself, it kind of goes step by step through each step of eye painting, and finishing up that here on the next page, and then also how to paint the check pattern on the hat. So painting that by hand, certainly a challenge. So you're painting all your lines there and then filling in the squares and filling that in, kind of sharpening it up even more carefully along the way until you ultimately get this nice check pattern, and that's also continued onto parts of the clothing there. So some very detailed painting, and again, this model kit's like this tall. It's very small, 1/20 scale for those. This is the Bernie kit here, another really cool one, part of the Minimum Factory line, another Shinya Yamashita design. So for this one, kind of showing how the stripes were painted there on the clothing, how the hair was painted and then kind of highlighted to give that nice shine to the hair parts there, using the Weathering Master set and some skin tone shading paint on the legs there, and that came out looking really nice. I really like the kind of tones there on the face, and the way that the face is painted on that one is really nice, and everything else too as well, but that one looks really cool. The Allier Makeup Edition, this is one that I've painted on a custom build. I painted it up like Sochie Heim from Tournai Gundam, if you guys remember that from a few years back. But really cool kit here. I really liked that. Had a lot of fun with this one. Wouldn't mind at all painting another one of those. How to paint Allier. So this one again is kind of starting off with black for all. So I really like this. I'll just kind of interrupt myself here for a moment. I really like how on each model it's showing something quite different, because like I mentioned before, if you had just like the same model or just building and painting each one of these. Ultimately, the steps would all be kind of similar, but they're really kind of doing a good job of on each model showing something different and unique. So like, for example, this one is showing a different painting style that we haven't seen, I think, quite yet, where you start with a black base, or in this case, I mean, it's like a really, really dark gray, and then build up the color from black, which gives you, you know, a different tone, is a different kind of painting technique, where it's then built up to a gray, to a light gray, and then to like a almost white, and then painting the colors on that as a way to kind of paint your colors, and then the colors have a deeper tone to them that you can see here with that. So it's cool. And then a little bit here of building this base, which is meant to look like just kind of like this bar scene there with the bottles, and they gave her a cup in her hand. So that's pretty cool. I like that. Very nice build. Yeah, I definitely want to get another one of those, I think. And then we have another Miyuki here. So this would be the one, the pink one, which is not on the front. Well, here's both of them here. This is the one that's on the front. This is the one that's on the back of the Mook there. The pink one, which also looks very nice. Painting the skin here. And there's also an illustration down here showing a bunch of different color versions, which would be cool, like reference material, which I would guess that that's also maybe something that's included in the instructions there that are included with the makeup edition of this kit. But that looks really nice. Yeah, the colors and everything on that, which is, like I said, this is the one that's on the front. There's kind of the both versions of that. This one also modeled by Furitsuko. Really, really nice. Both of those. Last couple little bits here. Let's see, we've got the Coletta makeup edition kit here. Up next, definitely using the water slides for the eyes, and quite interesting kind of skin tone here for this one. But this one is showing how to paint the clothing with a kind of a little bit more kind of wet style. It looks like they're allowing the paint to pool kind of intentionally in the kind of recessed areas, because those are going to be the areas that you're going to want to shadow anyway. So allowing that paint to pool there just kind of naturally gives you that dark shadow in those recessed areas there on the clothing. So pretty cool idea there for that. Painting the reflection on the goggles up on the head there. Very nice. And then the face base painted with this, yeah, very like pinkish color there for the base painting of that, and then kind of lightened up a little bit at the end. That one modeled by Purashiba. And I think that is the end. This is kind of our last section here. Looks like this is just a collection of some more like just little tips for building and painting here, and maybe some kind of behind the scenes type of stuff. Some more tips over here on this one, just about hand painting. And then here at the very end, we have a big advertisement for the Plamax Minimum Factory 120 scale line. So yeah, that's what the model kits that we've seen all throughout here have been. We have the original versions and the makeup edition versions, which, as I said, this is how they come molded. It would have been nice if they would have shown here on this side just the unpainted kits to show how the regular versions are just molded, since that's what they did here for this side. I think it would have been cool for this one as well. But these are the production models that are shown here, which, you know, fine. But it would have been cool to maybe show both. Show like the fully painted production model and then an unpainted version, just so that if you're not familiar with the line, if you just kind of want to try it out, you can kind of see just from the photos. But I'm sure you can find photos online of what those kits look like, just built up straight out of the box. We also have the Naked Angel line here as well. Those would be the kits that come with each like set comes with 2 models in each set, and one will be naked and one is usually in like a swimsuit or some other kind of pretty slim clothing. And then these are also part of the Minimum Factory line, but some other different characters. So like these are all the Shunya Yamashita ones, these designs, and these would be other characters like from different stuff here, like from Kantai Collection, Strike Witches, and Girls und Panzer, for example, for those. These Strike Witches ones, if I remember correctly, were a couple of the first ones that they came out with. So those are pretty hard to find now, as far as I've seen. They're pretty few and far between. Hopefully maybe they'll reprint those at some point. I think it would be nice. Some more Minimum Factory stuff. These are all the Macross Minimum Factory kits available, of which obviously, as you can see, there's quite a lot of those. Again, mostly female characters. We do have one Hikaru male character in there as well, and there are some more. Let's see, maybe on the last page they'll show Yeah, so like these are some of the other ones as well. From Dead or Alive, we have Nippako as well. The Protect gear from the red spectacles there. There's also a set that comes with like the Jeep in there as well. From Kimono Friends, we have these sets. Here, other sets from Crusher Joe. These like machinery sets there. The non-kit I was talking about. The Record of Lodos War D-Delit kit. This dragon kit, that was a lot of fun too. That's another one that I did paint, if you guys remember that painted project. But that's another one. I would love to get another one. These kits are really fun to work on, I'll tell you guys. I don't get the chance to work on them as often as I would like, but they're really fun to work on. Even the ones that I've painted, the Nippako as well. Any of those that I've painted, I would love the chance to paint again. So can't recommend them enough. Definitely check out those kits, and definitely check out this Mook if you guys are interested in these model kits specifically, but obviously you could use a lot of these painting techniques on anything, you know, kind of around that same scale. 120 scale, 124th, 135th would be another similar scale to these, I think. So we got some credits here at the end, and then some other different Mooks available. With this one we've already actually taken a look at, and there's a couple more there. Let's see, I think we maybe missed that. Nope, there wasn't any at the front. Anyway, okay, all right, so that's it. Thank you guys so much for checking out this Mook with me. Really cool, a lot of really great stuff in there. Just gonna have to do some translating, but I really like how there was a lot of emphasis put on different types of paint and different types of painting style and different techniques and stuff that you can use for painting this type of kit. Because like I said, I really enjoy working on these kits, so I'm looking forward to working on some more in the future. And this Mook certainly had a lot of really great tips in it, I think. So let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. Was there anything that you thought was particularly interesting from this Mook, or is there any of these kits that you guys are really into? Have you tried any before? What's your experience been like with them? Let me know in the comment section. If you guys want to check out some paints and tools and supplies and all that good stuff for yourself, check the link in the video description to USA Gundam Store. That'll be down there right below the video, so check that out. As always, guys, thank you so much for your support too. Liking the video, commenting, subscribing, make sure that you ring the bell as well. Just make sure that you don't miss any future episodes of Mook Review or anything else. Thank you guys, and I'll see y'all later. Have a great day. Bye.